Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. Today, what I want to talk about is what you should be doing at each stage of your learning process when you are a screenwriter. And so I have noticed, as I have talked with a lot of different writers, there are certain things that you need to make your priority at different stages of your writing. And I want to help clarify some of this for you today so that hopefully you can learn a lot faster. So when you first start writing, right, I'm going to sort of say that this is stage one, right? Stage one is where you are totally new, right? So you haven't written, you have nothing done, you have nothing down, right? This is where you are in the sort of learning phase. You've realized, oh, I think writing might be something that I'm interested in. And you're sort of setting yourself on that journey, right? So in this stage, the first thing that you want to do is I would say do some learning in regards to watching some initial videos, right? But not a crazy amount, right? So maybe this is like, read a few books, watch videos like my channel, for example, and other great channels on YouTube. And then, just write something, right? So write a short script, write something that's 6 pages, write something that's 10, and do a lot of different writing, right? Just sort of get used to that. Honestly, like if you're in stage one, I would say writing something like 5 to 10 short scripts. And this is getting super messy, super fast, but like writing like 5 to 10 short scripts, this is going to be helpful for you because you're just getting used to the process, right? So you want to learn about script formatting. You want to get some general ideas on how a story should look like, but ultimately, like this should be your goal as fast as possible, right? You want to not spend too much time on here. Too many people spend way too much time watching videos and this sort of thing because it feels nice. You feel like you're learning when you're watching videos, you're reading books, but you're not actually learning yet, right? You're just sort of getting an understanding or trying to get an understanding. You're not really going to start learning until you start writing, right? So the learning process really is the writing phase. And I think it's important to think about it that way. So now let's come over to stage 2. Okay. So what is stage 2? Stage 2 is now, you have some stuff written. So you have some, let's say, written stories, right? And you have done some work initially, but you don't have anything big, right? So you've done some, initial learning here, or initial study of books, initial learning. You're just starting to get used to the writing process. And this is another big point, right? So a lot of people, they get here and they get obsessed with their ideas. So usually this is the point where somebody has like the best idea ever for a feature, right? Or a TV series, right? So like they've done a little bit of writing and now they are a genius storyteller, right? They've realized that they actually have crazy good ideas and they want to start working on this. So usually this is where people start, outlining their first big project, right? Outlining first big project. Now what happens here is a lot of writers, this is where they outline forever and ever and ever and ever, right? So many writers, honestly, like a lot, I would say even most people that are interested in writing, this is where their journey ends, right? They wrote some initial stuff and now they have this crazy idea and they're going to tell all their buddies about it and they're going to tell their friends, they're going to tell their family, and they're going to, in the evenings, once every 2 to 3 months, they're going to do a little bit of outlining, or they'll see one of my videos recommended to them and they'll come back and they'll do a little bit of outlining and be like, yeah, like this is really coming together. But they will never actually jump into that first screenplay because they know that It's not perfect yet, right? And they're waiting for it to be perfect, okay? So if you're here, right, the most important thing that you can do right now is write that draft, right? Stop outlining and just write a bad version of it. Nothing is going to help you improve as a writer more than writing this. And here is where I want to tackle some of the beliefs you're probably holding about this and why. So the question is, why haven't you done this, right? Like if you're here, why haven't you actually started to tackle that first big feature or TV pilot? Some of you believe that the story needs to be perfect in the outline before you can write it. Unfortunately, that literally will never happen. Your outline is not going to be perfect for multiple reasons. One, you've never wrote a feature before, so you don't actually have a clear understanding of what the relationship is between an outline and an actual written draft, because they are different things. And you'll realize that if you actually write, right? So that's kind of a big point. And the other point is you just feel like it's going to be a ton of work, right? And so you feel stressed because you want it to be good. You have this anxiety every time you sit down to write it. And because of that, it doesn't get done. And so I challenge you to remove that stress from you and essentially to say, okay, I'm going to just have fun writing this, and it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. What it's going to be is a huge step forward in my understanding of how writing works. And ideally, you're learning the process side, right? So in this stage is a big element of the writing process side, where this is finally where you're able to think about the skill of sitting down and writing consistently and getting used to removing that stress, removing that writer's block, and sitting down and writing, right? And that is what you're learning here. You're not learning how to tell a perfect story right now. You're just learning how to actually get something that's 100 pages onto the page without stopping, right? So this is where I want to talk about sort of stage 3. So stage 3, usually this is 30 pages into that feature or that pilot and quit, right? So this is, essentially it is a failure to push to the end because you were overwhelmed with the fact that the story wasn't working, right? So the story stops working, right? Your first act isn't working and your second act isn't working either. And now you're frustrated and you've only written 28 pages and all you see is the 80 more pages you have to write and your story already isn't working. And so you stop, right? This happens again and again and again. I can't tell you how many writers I talk to who have 20 pages done or 30 pages done or 26 pages in a really detailed outline. It's like this comes back to this. You are still actually in stage 2 here, right? Like finish that draft. And so the biggest thing here that you'll see is that like people put a huge focus on this idea of like, oh, I should be learning new information. And here's the reality, right? Informationally, the things that I'm saying, for example, like I have said essentially everything I need to say about storytelling in regards to how it works, right? Like, and essentially what I'm doing is trying to look at the same problems and elements through different lenses again and again so that you can, continue to understand and get a solid understanding of what you need to be doing in your story. So don't focus on reading 10 books or all of this stuff. It's like once you go through some videos and get a general sense of what's going on, the number one thing that's going to help you is the writing stage, right? So you are still in stage 2 if you are here, right? If you're 30 pages in and quit, you just need to write that stinking draft. That is going to be the most important thing for you, okay? So now let's come over to here, right? So this is sort of stage 4. Stage 4. What is stage 4? Okay, so first finished draft. Okay? So now, fantastic, right? You finished your first draft, and this is awesome. Okay? Now, usually in this stage, one of two things happens. Either one, you hate it, right? You're like, this is the worst thing ever. I hate this feature. It was so bad. I felt nothing but pain the entire time. The story doesn't work. I want to quit, right? Or you feel too, hey, this is actually pretty good. Okay? Like, this is pretty good. I actually was surprised that I got something pretty solid out of this, and I'm feeling good about it. So here's the reality. This guy is probably right. So there's actually, and this is a hard thing to hear, but I literally have never seen an example where this was not true. It's just not good. Like, you think your first draft that you ever wrote ever is good, but it's just not. The reality is you can't see how bad it is, right? And that's hard to hear, but that is the reality. So if you hate it, that's actually good, right? Because it means that you have a general sense of the fact that it's not working. And ideally what you need to do is say, okay, why? Why do I hate this, right? And start to list the problems. So list the problems, okay? Because that, now we can start the learning process of getting better. So in this phase, what you need to be focusing on is identifying what didn't work, identifying problems, right, in that draft, and fixing them, right? So trying to be as objective as possible about the problems so that you can actually make some progress here and actually start to fix it and make it better, right? So in this phase, this is a great phase to list your problems, identify those problems, and start to fix them yourself as much as you possibly can. Now, then, the most important thing too is to start something new very soon, right? So what you don't need to do, what most people do here is this is where they stop. They go, oh, I have this draft. And then they go, oh, it's pretty good. And so then they continue doing what, people were doing in stage 2, which is they tell all their friends about how they have this draft, and they have like some of their friends read it, and their friends all say, oh, this is pretty good. Oh yeah. Oh. And, and they're like, you know what, this is pretty good. Yeah. And then that's the end. And they don't actually have anything good, but they're not willing to take any sort of feedback or actually look at it objectively. And, if that's not your goal and you just want to write something for you and feel that it's good, great. But if you are trying to improve, then obviously that's not where you want to end up, right? So you want to identify problems as quickly as you can, honestly, and be objective about those problems. And then, you can do your best to fix them, right? And then honestly, the biggest thing is taking away, okay, what did I learn from this draft? What were the problems, and how am I going to go into a new story with having solved some of those issues, right? So you can take some time, not a ton of time though, because the more time that you take, the more you are procrastinating and not actually getting better. But you want to take some time, you want to list those problems, fix them, and then start something new. Because again, you're not just learning how to tell a story, you're also learning how to consistently get something out, right? The other big skill set that people don't think about is the process element. Can you generate 100 pages of a story at will at any point? That is the other skill set that you need to be working on. It's not just about, if you are the number one best ever at identifying and fixing story problems and how stories work, that's great, but it also means that it's going to take you forever and ever to get anything out and done, which makes everything slower. So you need to be able to write with a certain level of speed. And so you want to be starting something new here, right? And then essentially do this ideally a few times. And then you can get into stage 5. So stage 5 is usually when I'm working with people one-on-one, this is kind of who I'm looking for, right? So in stage 5, you have anywhere between, let's say 3 to 8, finished feature or pilot screenplays, right? So these are not shorts. These are finished long form stories. And likely they're not going to be that great, right? There's going to be some that you like more than others. There's going to be some that are like, oh, this is like, I guess this is finished, but it's like a half draft and I know what I want to change, or, oh yeah, I have this story, but I also want to change these 20 pages, or, everybody has that. You're not going to have like 3 to 8 perfectly fully done, because what we do as writers, things are always not fully done, right? And that's something that you'll feel a lot. And so, but the goal is to actually have some real projects here, right? That's what I mean, is that you actually got some drafts out, you've actually done some work, maybe you've done, a couple rewrites on some of these stories. And then now this is where you are doing a couple things. One, you can start to submit to sort of like credible competitions, or festivals, this sort of thing. You don't have to do this, but the idea being, that you can start to get some general feedback, right? This is what you're looking for. Is you're looking for some outside feedback on your work, right? Where are you actually at, right? So usually this is the point where writers realize, okay, so my work isn't garbage, right? It's not totally bad, but I'm probably writing at like a 5 out of 10 to like a 6 out of 10, right? So structurally, it seems like the stories are kind of working. You have some cool moments, you have some cool beats, but it's not masterful. You don't feel like it's like really, deep in any way. And so you're kind of at this point. And this is the point where you want to start saying, okay, I want some outside feedback. And this is, where I usually work with people one-on-one. And I really believe in one-on-one feedback, because I am actually able to walk you through specifically what's not working in the story, versus you just watching a video, or even you like reading some feedback that a particular competition or like the blacklist sent to you, something like that. But with one-on-one feedback, you're able to actually sit down, talk, I identify the problems in that story, and then we fix them together, because it's the implementation of the fixes that is probably the issue, right? You also want to identify what's not working and then also implement the solutions correctly. And so ideally, this is the point where you can start to get some one-on-one feedback. And this is where you're really rolling, right? You have a general sense of storytelling, but it's really about, okay, how do we go from general sense of storytelling to very clearly knowing what needs to be in your story, what doesn't, why are we making scene choices, why are we making character choices, all of that. And that ideally takes you into more of a stage 6, where not only are you writing multiple stories, but you are writing stories with clear intention, essentially like a system that helps get your story on track, And ideally here, you now have screenplays, do the S in parentheses, screenplays that ideally can get some recognition, can help you actually in the professional world make some moves, right? Now, in regards to the actual selling of scripts, like that is an entirely different topic, right? And there's a lot of people on YouTube and elsewhere that have covered the actual process of breaking into the industry in depth. And so I'm not going to go through that here, because that's not the focus of this. The focus of this is, how do you go from I'm interested in storytelling, to a screenwriter who has a clear understanding of what's working, what's not working in their story, what is the purpose of their story, do they have something to say, and can they bang out a 100-page screenplay in a solid 100-page screenplay in, 3 months, let's say, versus taking 3 years to write a short, right? And so that's the goal, right? The goal is that, okay, finally you actually have, this is where you actually become a, strong storyteller, where you understand how to make contextual decisions, right? So essentially what happens is, how can you go from not knowing what the problem is and not knowing how to fix it, to easily identifying what's not working and knowing how to fix it within the context of what you're trying to do, right? What is the goal of this story? How do I fix this particular problem in that story within the context of the story I am trying to tell and the purpose of that story, right? That's where you want to be. And then from there, now you're finally armed to, look at professional writing and say, okay, can I actually be a professional storyteller here? What do I want to do? What connections do I have with others that could actually help me grow and build something? So that is kind of how I see it. And I think most people are here, right? Especially most people following my channel. Actually, if I zoom out here. So most people are right here, right? Most of you guys are between stage 2 and 3. You probably have a short or 2 done, or maybe you have a collection of shorts and you're working on that first big project, or you have 30 pages done of that first feature. Your goal, you just need to get here. You need to finish that draft, because nothing is going to help you more than finishing that draft right now. From there, then it's about, okay, doing that multiple times, right? Get some actual work done here. That, I'm telling you, no amount of watching videos or reading books is going to be as valuable to you as simply doing the work. So I hope that's helpful to you. If you are somebody that does have a completed feature or pilot and is interested in working with me one-on-one, there is a link below this video where we can have a conversation about working together. Other than that, if you made it this far in the video, please give it a like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next week.